Get free vouchers.
Hello, good morning. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. On the show today, India's tryst with AI, even as India looks to launch India's AI Mission portal. What are the challenges and opportunities ahead? We will be discussing with Anurag Dua, who's a partner at EY, and also will be joining us is Manish Maheshwari, a Mason Fellow at Harvard University. All that and more on Morning Brief at 9. Watching Morning Brief at 9. Let's first take a look at top stories we are tracking at this hour. Indian economy is currently delivering good returns to investors. Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman said on Monday to explain the sell-off by foreign institutional investors and the outflows observed in the equity market. India's trade deficit widens to $23 billion in January from $21.9 billion over rising import bill due to a rapidly falling Indian rupee. New production-linked incentive schemes are reported to be phased out soon as existing ones have not yet delivered satisfactory results. Reports say that government is working on contours of new incentive scheme for a set of industries with a focus on job creation and quality of products. And India's AI Mission portal to be launched soon. IndiaAI Mission to provide 14,000 GPUs for AI compute capacity, with over 10,000 already secured to benefit stakeholders at reduced costs. And SBI Mutual Fund unveils Jan Nivesh SIP to offer flexible SIP options starting at just 250 rupees with daily, weekly and monthly investment plans. A low entry threshold to make it easier for individuals to start their mutual fund journey. India will soon join a select few nations globally to start an on-road vertical takeoff and landing air ambulance service across the country. A $1 billion deal signed with IIT Madras-based electric aircraft startup E-Plane company to supply 788 air ambulances. Dubai-based low-cost carrier Fly Dubai could launch an India domestic airline soon through collaboration with Busy Bee Airways. Busy Bee currently negotiations with creditors to acquire trademark, flying license and airport slots of bankrupt Indian airline Go First. Skoda Auto Volkswagen India moves Bombay High Court seeking quashing of show cause notice issued to it by the Customs Department. Customs has accused the auto giant of evading taxes worth $1.4 billion over 12 years by misrepresenting imports. Enforcement Directorate will pursue affluent Indians who use offshore companies to buy apartments and mansions in the UK, as acquiring stocks of foreign companies that primarily hold properties is a violation of the foreign exchange regulations. top stories we'll be tracking here on Morning Brief at 9. But first up, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman addressed concerns over foreign institutional investors or FII outflows from India's equity markets, stating that withdrawals are a sign of investors booking profits after strong returns. Speaking at a post-budget media briefing in Mumbai, she emphasized that the Indian economy is in fact currently offering good returns, and which is why it is encouraging foreign investors to cash out. Sitharaman dismissed concerns that India's stock markets are becoming less attractive to investors both domestically as well as foreign institutional investors. In fact, Finance Secretary Tuhin Kanta Pandey added that the movement of FIIs is normal and driven by global uncertainties, with investors often returning to safer havens like the US in times of volatility. He further clarified that FIIs are not necessarily shifting from one emerging market to another, but are simply dialoguing with changing global conditions.
FIIs also go out when they're able to, in a position to book profits. Indian market today, Indian economy today has an environment in which investments are also yielding good returns and profit booking is also happening. And I'm sure you would have seized that fact also.
And moving on now, India's trade deficit widened to $22.9 billion in the month of January of 2025 from $21.94 billion in the month of December of 2024, largely due to a rising import bill driven by a rapidly falling Indian rupee. For the April to January period, exports rose by 1.39% to $358.9 billion, while imports increased by a whopping 7.43% to $601 billion. Trade Secretary Sunil Barthwal highlighted the strong performance of Indian merchandise and services exports, noting that electronics, pharmaceuticals and rice were in fact key drivers of merchandise exports from India for the month of January, and it stood at about $36.43 billion, down from $38.01 billion in the month of December, while imports remained nearly stable at $59.42 billion. Now, India's services exports in January reached $38.5 billion compared to $32.6 billion in the month of December, with services exports rising to $18.22 billion. Gold imports dropped significantly to $2.68 billion from $4.7 billion in the month of December, while crude oil imports also saw a decline, falling to $13.4 billion from $15.2 billion. Earlier, the government had reported a record high trade deficit of $37.84 billion for the month of December, which was later revised down to $32.84 billion after adjusting for gold imports. And moving on now, the Indian government is preparing to launch IndiaAI Compute Portal, a platform that will enable key stakeholders, including central ministries and state governments in India, to request computing capacity. This initiative is a part of broader IndiaAI Mission, which aims to provide subsidized compute network and storage services to eligible users, with the government covering up to 40% of the total computing cost. Union IT Minister Ashwini Vaishnaw confirmed that the portal will be launched in the next 7 to 8 days, so perhaps in a week's time from now. The portal will offer shared computing resources, including approximately 14,000 graphic processing units or GPUs, provided by at least 10 companies that have submitted the lowest bids. Now, this move is expected to enhance the accessibility and affordability of advanced computing resources across government sectors and beyond, to even startups. How will it really change India's journey to becoming a nation that spearheads AI? Let's talk about that. Joining us on the show is Manish Maheshwari, Mason Fellow at Harvard University. Also with us is Anurag Dua, partner at EY. Manish, I want to come to you first. A common computing facility with GPUs available across board, 10 firms, 14,000, 18,000 likely to be acquired in the coming few months. Is this promising to you enough? Because the government says these are high-end processing units. These are units, in fact, far better than what DeepSeek has been built on. Are you happy with the portal and what it has to offer?
Yeah, Sushita, you asked me, is it promising enough? And I personally feel it's quite promising, at least on three reasons, right? Number one, it can be a game changer for emerging startups and researchers because they don't have to now worry about compute because they have someone to go to. Second, it also signals a change in the stance, in the sense that the government is encouraging public-private partnership. I think, in fact, in this initiative, companies like Jio, Tata, AWS are the private players who are coming together to support this. So that's a very important signaling effect on the ecosystem. And third is it does boost the whole AI innovation quotient for the country, and it accelerates the ability of the country to be more self-reliant and also develop indigenous capabilities. So it is quite promising, in my view, to have something like this come from the government of India. And this will go a long way personally if that's what I feel personally.
Okay, you think it's going to go a long way. Anurag, do you agree? About 14,000 GPUs to build foundational models in India. Manish says it is promising, it is going to help startups, in fact also going to help a lot of government ministries to compute and build foundational models. Do we have the right ecosystem in place now with IndiaAI Portal to be launched soon?
So, Shweta, I'll put it this way. Is it promising? I would say very promising. We have a start now. There are two parts to it. One, for the larger ecosystem creation, I would say yes, this is a great move. And one part is whether the GPUs are available or not. Second part is the understanding of the ecosystem of where to go for those GPUs, specifically for the ministries.
Okay.
Because there has been a lot of discussions that have been there, that once a model is getting built, how to train that model, where to take that model to be trained. I am sure proper guardrails would be set up and there would be some directional thing that would be coming from the ministry at some point in time from a guardrails perspective also. Coupling all those things, I think it is a great initiative. From a larger ecosystem perspective, I believe that the entire innovation ecosystem, or whether we are able to develop our own foundational models, I'm sure, Shweta, you would have seen that the government of India, IndiaAI, has also come up with another initiative where they are asking for proposals from startups, academia, researchers and all to actually develop India context specific foundational models. So that initiative also gets a huge fillip. But having said that, while one part is the GPU, other part is how to incentivize the larger innovation ecosystem in the country more from a human resource perspective. That remains to be seen if there is any such initiative that is coming from the ministry at some point in time. But yes, I see this is a huge initiative and very promising for the industry.
All right, but equitable access, Anurag, in your assessment, will that not incentivize startups and other government players to really start participating now that they know that, and the government is suggesting about 40% of all the computing cost would be reduced by the way of this new portal? Would that not be an incentive enough?
Big incentive, Shweta. That's going to be a big incentive, yeah.
All right, Manish, I want to come back to you. Government of India is making strides, and we all heard, Ashwini Vaishnaw, the minister responsible for taking India's AI ambition further. He said that given how DeepSeek was developed at a fraction of cost of what foundational models earlier prior to that were developed, it gives a reason for India and India's dream to be taken seriously. And with government now providing that sort of infrastructure at a basic level, in your assessment, how long will it take before India comes up with its own foundational models here?
I think it won't take long, and I'll tell you why. Number one is to build something. The major part of the cost is the compute cost, right? I mean, you need compute power both at the training level, and also when you build a reasoning model, you need some compute power at the inference level as well when you try to draw inferences. Now, most entrepreneurs sort of think about it and say, okay, it's a huge cost. How do we, defray that cost, and should we even do it? Or should we depend more on sort of other players to build it, and we will probably build a vertical, problem specific kind of solutions. Now here, what happens is that one is, of course, they get access. And secondly, they also feel like, okay, there is a bit of a support here, both financially and otherwise. So it will create more motivation for startups to venture into this area, and also for more, venture capital firms to also invest in those companies, knowing that the broader public policy and regulatory environment and the government support is there. So that will also lead to better funding and better access to capital for these startups. Plus, also startups can, feel like, okay, this is something which is solvable. Because if you think about it, even for DeepSpeak, right? I mean, they talk about like a sub 10 million kind of investment to build, some kind of model based on distillation of existing LLMs. Now, Indian companies could also do that now, knowing that, okay, that's possible both from the perspective of capability, but also now that they have access to the compute resources and also some way to also defray that cost. So, bringing all these things together, plus the signaling like this would encourage more entrepreneurs to go into this direction. And we will probably see another DeepSeek kind of a innovation happening from India very soon. That's my view.
All right. Well, we're all waiting for that. Anurag, another aspect of IndiaAI Mission, and which is what the CEO Abhishek Singh of IndiaAI Mission said. He said the makers of foundational model can now access up to 1,500 crore rupees worth funds from as a part of IndiaAI Mission. Is that money enough, given that we've now seen enough and more evidence that you don't need a lot of money to build foundational models?
So yes, I would say, in fact, that's the initiative I was talking about, Shweta. I think this is good money, and proposals are being asked. I understand some proposals have already been submitted, and what I also see is that government is co-investing, and the point that we were just discussing, that it's a huge signaling also, whether it is on the GPU front or providing support on actually developing foundational models. It's a huge signaling for not only from the government side, but also the ecosystem also now understands now whether more resources are getting invested from the private sector side, because definitely while government will play its role, and it is playing its role, I would say, private sector also needs to play its own role to come up and actually develop something like this. So with this entire set of initiatives, that's why I would say it's not only one initiative, whether it is GPU or the other program that the government is talking about. It is a combination of all of those initiatives that is really catalyzing the ecosystem in the country.
Manish, I want to come back to you. While we're seeing a lot of promises being made, we're also seeing a lot of strides that government is making vis-a-vis providing the right kind of support to, startups, players out there who are likely to take India's AI mission forward. We haven't seen a lot of progress in the past 1 year. Bharat GPT, the talks of an AI model which would be backed by Reliance, those conversations seem to have faded into oblivion. What really happened there? What, according to you, are the challenges that continue to persist?
Yeah, that's a good point. In fact, even I was wondering, and I think the way I would answer this question is, so far the discussion or the narrative was that you need huge amount of capital, and large, deep-pocketed companies in the Bay Area are the best suited to build foundational models because they have the access to resources and they are already ahead of the game, right? Now that narrative has completely changed the last 1 month. Now what the new thinking now is that the real moat is not capital, the real moat is creativity. And I think in my mind, changing of that narrative would cause entrepreneurs to start venturing into this space now. That's one. Number two is that India as a country, we have been now figuring out what should be our unique positioning here and where should we innovate here, right? Now, if you think from a development perspective, you need data sets, and India has some unique data sets, right? If you think about our healthcare data set, our traffic and logistics databases, our agriculture data sets, all those data sets can now be leveraged in a very unique way to provide solution which is very relevant for this country. And my view is that as those data sets open up, because this initiative is probably the first initiative, that I think a follow-on initiative I'm expecting is that how government makes the India relevant data sets available for people to build models on, right? I mean, of course, taking care of all the security, privacy and anonymity aspects of it. But those data sets, when they are exposed, because ultimately the better the quality of data sets, the better the learning and the training of the models. Number two, that's on the data set side. The number two is what you need is a bit of a coding and the writing the algorithm side of it. I think in my mind, that is where Anurag's point about repurposing the labor force or the skill sets is needed. And the signaling effect will cause a lot more people to now think about AI as a suitable career options. And people will retrain themselves and repurpose themselves from what they were doing to becoming more like AI specialists or AI experts. and that will also help us. And the third one is, of course, the compute, which in a great way this thing solves, because you need computing solutions or compute power, and I think this initiative provides the compute power. So the other two things is what we are waiting for. One is the data sets, which are India specific, and the second one is some kind of a mechanism where we get the people to sort of repurpose themselves and also reskill themselves to become more focused on the AI part of the work, right? So I think with these three things coming together, I'm pretty hopeful that India would be a leader in this area as well.
All right. Very interesting point there, Anurag, that Manish made. It's not really about deep pockets anymore. It's about the right kind of creativity. And while we have a low-cost, low-compute option that government is making available, what about data sets? What about the skills? Those continue to be laggards. What, according to you, are the challenges that India is facing as far as realizing its AI mission?
So on the data set, Shweta, there have been lots of initiatives that have happened in the past. In fact, Government of India, Ministry of IT itself came up with few initiatives. If I recall correctly, Niti Aayog also came up with a couple of initiatives on data sets. Look, one of the problems that we have been facing specifically on the data sets has always been about the points that Manish just mentioned about the anonymity, about how to safeguard, or the security aspects that need to be put in. Now, I think with some of the aspects of, we'll have to see how DPDP is also evolving in the country. So, and how do we really fine tune some of those aspects and really encourage people. Look, other point is that how do we encourage the ecosystem to continuously sharing that data? We have one of the largest data sets available given the size of our population in multiple sectors. Whether you look, when you talk about healthcare, transport, any sector that you look at, we'll have one of the largest data sets that would be available. So that's one. How do we really fine tune that ecosystem that people are really sharing their data with the right safeguards in place? That's one.
Okay.
On the skilling side, Shweta, that is again, in my view, will be one of the most critical aspects because while we have a lot of creativity, India has been a powerhouse as far as the code writing is concerned, and I'm sure it will remain so.
Right.
But how to upskill people continuously, how to come up with some of the new programs, how to incentivize people getting into that AI code writing, the models creation and all, that will remain as one of the most critical aspects. Now having the infrastructure problems catered
to in a way. Absolutely, Anurag. In fact, as much as I would like this conversation to go on, I've completely run out of time. Anurag Dua, Manish Maheshwari, thank you very much for taking time out for joining us on that very important discussion on India's AI tryst, opportunities as well as challenges. But time for a short break now. We'll be back with more on the other side. You're watching Morning Brief at 9.
Does it take to be the greatest in the world? Speed, talent, commitment. But is that all it takes? There is one thing which truly sets you apart. Your inner strength. Sodiri TMT Reebok, true inner strength.
Mama must be missing us, na?
Let's take it one bit, give me one day. Feel the itch under my skin, it's a one day. You been like it when you see we in the hey. It doesn't matter, just gotta get going.
New GT line, Taigun and Virtus. Volkswagen.
मैं और आप, कोई फर्क नहीं है हमें।
6 needed of the last ball.
जब ताक लेते हैं अपनी मंजिल को, तो उसे पाने के लिए कमर तोड़ मेहनत करते हैं। पर कभी-कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच
House is not in your budget, sir. Sorry.
रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
What is to the nines? In literal terms, it's perfection. But to us, it's not just a phrase, it's an attitude. One that starts at your desk and sends a statement to the world. To the nines is about taking charge, It's a way of life where every seam, every fold, is crafted with excellence. It's timeless elegance and uncompromising quality made for the corner office. It's the ideas that inspire redefining order and elevating the tabletop. To the nines, for the leaders of today and the visionaries of tomorrow.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. I'm Shweta Kothari. Let's take a quick look now at our markets have opened as of this Tuesday morning. On your screens right now, Nifty, Sensex, mid-cap, small-cap all down, but marginally so. Nifty down 0.15%, holding just above 22,900 mark at 22,924. Sensex down 0.15% at 75,879 mark. Mid-cap, small-cap both down, but marginally so. Once again, mid-cap down 0.05% at 49,824. Small cap down 0.05% at 15,398. It's the India VIX index, which is up 2% at 16.05. Volatility still remains high, but just remember, yesterday, in fact, both Nifty and Sensex snapped their losing streak, the 8-day consecutive losing streak, with benchmark snapping and ending with gains of 0.13% at 22,959. That is as far as Sensex is concerned. The S&P BSE Sensex also ended with gains of 0.08% at about 75,996. In fact, Nifty ended with gains of 0.13% at 22,959 yesterday. However, overall sectoral trend was mixed, with pharma, energy, metals under key gainers through IT and auto ended in losses. The broader index trend too was mixed, with mid-cap ending with some gains while small cap ended flatly. That was yesterday. This morning markets once again opening in red. Nifty down 0.15%, Sensex down 0.15% as well. And India's much acclaimed production-linked incentive or PLI scheme that was launched with an outlay of 1.97 lakh crore rupees may not get renewed anymore. Instead, the government is now reportedly working on making employee-linked incentive or ELI scheme get sharper in 2026. Remember, PLI scheme was launched in 21-22 to give a boost to manufacturing during the Atmanirbhar Bharat narrative, when India was looking at positioning itself as the factory of the world in wake of China's lockdown and eventual slowdown, leading to a global China Plus One strategy. But data now suggests that only 6% of the allocated PLI incentives have been disbursed, amounting to just 11,000 crore rupees as of September of 2024. Now, sectors like automobile, advanced chemistry cell batteries, as well as steel and textiles that were slated to lead manufacturing capacity have fallen short of expectations. The only notable exceptions seem to be iPhone maker Apple, that has surpassed its capacity commitments and benefiting from the PLI scheme. But domestic demand for consumer goods seems to be concern for government right now, and demand will come when people have jobs, and that is where ELI comes in. The employee-linked incentive scheme was announced by the government in July of 2024 budget, but there's not enough data yet to suggest its takeoff. Despite quoting an improvement in the EPFO enrollment as well as the data from periodic labour force survey, on many occasions the government knows that jobs must be created on priority, and without them there is no consumption revival and no GDP growth. The push for ELI also comes at a time when the government is giving lucrative tax benefits for the middle class and working population. In this year's budget speech, remember, Finance Minister Nirmala Sitharaman mentioned India's toy industry as well as leather and footwear sectors to become engines of employment and quality production. This suggests a shift from just quantity to globally competitive quality, and from manufacturing at all cost to manufacturing through employment creation. So is the PLI scheme dead now? Well, not so soon. The production and investment related incentives of 1.97 lakh crore rupees will continue to be valid up until 2030 under the existing PLI scheme for 14 sectors. What seems to have changed is that there would no longer be a rejig of sectors within the PLI ambit and no further investment by the government solely on the quantity being produced. The push to ELI will prompt job creation. Hypothetically, however, in manufacturing arena, ELI should turn out to be PLI driver with more jobs leading to more production. But lessons from economics tell us that incentives are often just short-term in nature and don't lead to sustainable growth. And moving on now, an IIT Madras startup aims to take to skies social contract for saving lives in emergencies and $1 billion deals. If someone told you this is what dreams are made of, well, this is reality. IIT Madras-based electric aircraft startup E-Plane Company has been commissioned to deliver 788 air ambulances across the country. The order placed by ICATT, an air ambulance firm, as per media reports. Now, these air ambulances will have a pilot, a paramedic and space for a stretcher along with other emergency medical care essentials. It will travel at a speed of 200 kilometers per hour with a battery range of over 110 kilometers per charge and cater to high density as well as far-flung areas to get patients timely medical care. The startup has a inbuilt capacity to make up to 100 air ambulances a year using its E-Plane's sought-after VTOL or vertical takeoff and landing technology. Now, so far, the firm has raised $20 million, with startup needing another $100 million to prototype the VTOL air ambulances. With this, India is slated to join the elite club of a select few nations to start an on-road vertical takeoff and landing air ambulance service across the country. Remember, air taxis are being developed and tested already by companies like Uber that give commuters an opportunity to beat traffic. In fact, last year, US-based Archer Aviation and India's Indigo signed an agreement to make air taxis available by 2026 that would cut down travel time from Delhi's Connaught Place to Gurugram to just 7 minutes. The air ambulance service is a natural extension of the same technology. We still don't know, however, what shape regulation takes for such services. And affluent Indians who purchased UK properties through offshore companies are now under scrutiny of India's Enforcement Directorate. Now, while Indian residents are permitted to remit up to $250,000 annually to buy properties abroad, directly acquiring shares in foreign companies that primarily hold properties, in fact, violates foreign exchange rules. Now, over the years, wealthy Indian families used this method to avoid stamp duty, capital gains tax, and inheritance tax, assuming that such transactions would remain undisclosed. However, the UK government closed many tax loopholes recently, and some benefits of holding properties through companies persist. The identities of these owners are now increasingly being revealed due to two key factors, and that is what is leading EI to investigate further. The Enforcement Directorate investigating the actual assets behind overseas stock investment declared in income tax returns. That's one factor, and the UK's 2023 mandate requiring disclosure of beneficial ownership details for companies owning such properties in the UK is another factor that is leading to some of these details now coming out, and with details now being made available out in the public, Enforcement Directorate is investigating people who are holding properties through third-party channels. And Fly Dubai, a UAE-based airline, is looking to make its foray in India. Reports suggest that Fly Dubai has expressed interest in acquiring Go First through collaboration with Busy Bee Airways. Now, Busy Bee is currently negotiating with creditors to acquire trademarks, flying licenses and airport slots of the bankrupt Indian airline Go First. According to media reports citing sources, BusyBee, which first expressed interest in acquiring Go First in March of 2024, aims to revive airline's brand without really purchasing its physical assets. Now, Go First, previously owned by the Wadia Group, filed for bankruptcy in May of 2023 after facing financial troubles due to engine supply issues from Pratt & Whitney, leading to the grounding of half of its fleet. Now, Fly Dubai's potential takeover could revive the airline. The deal, however, is subject to regulatory approvals and resolution of Go First's debt and legal challenges. If successful, this acquisition would mark Fly Dubai's entry into the Indian market, enhancing connectivity between the UAE and India. And let's now take a look at other global stories we're tracking here on Morning Brief at 9. Chinese President Xi Jinping meets China's top tech leaders, including Alibaba founder Jack Ma, in a rare show of support for private businesses. And Western tech firms accelerate shift away from China amid rising US-China tensions. Mexican tequila makers fear 25% US import could hurt business as Donald Trump grants temporary tariff pause. And India's rural areas push for better internet as Elon Musk's Starlink seeks to fill gap and regulatory hurdles as well as competition. And South Korea suspends DeepSeek downloads over data privacy concern, with Sensex shares rising as app integrates into Weixin messaging platform. Shein under pressure to reduce valuation to $30 billion ahead of potential London listing, with IPO likely facing delays due to regulatory concerns and US market challenges. Delta Airlines flight crashes while landing at Toronto Pearson Airport, injuring 15 people, including a child, with 2 in critical condition. And Britain offers to send peacekeeping troops as European leaders strategize for Ukraine's security, while US and Russia officials prepare for high-level talks to end the conflict.
मैं और आप, कोई फर्क नहीं है हमें। जब ताक लेते हैं अपनी मंजिल को, तो उसे पाने के लिए कमर तोड़ मेहनत करते हैं, पर कभी कभी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच
हाउस इज नॉट इन योर बजट सर, सॉरी,
रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच। टाटा कैपिटल, मिटाए फासले।
It's not the fiefdom of politicians. They owe it to the people.
Matter is now more about faith of the millions of devotees than just political slugfest.
Does that mean that I can't get a job in Chennai, although I may be best suited for that particular job? They have more civic sense, they have more of civility than all these men. My name is Sudha Sadanand. Welcome to the South Indian.
खेला होगा, हर नहले पे दहला होगा, ये बड़ा है, स्टेज बड़ा है, पूरा भारत साथ खड़ा है, साथ खड़ा है, गेम बड़ा है, ड्रिबल लाइक अ रैप, पास 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 पास, सेट the track, kick it hard in the booth. Chuck the football. Here we are the Tigers. 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 Chuck the football. Chuck the football.
We are at the highest airfield in India and one of the highest airfield in the world. It is the most beautiful airfield in India. There's no aircraft that cannot land on this airfield.
This will be the highest airfield in India and 5th in the world.
This particular runway will cater for most of the military aircraft, fighters and transport landing.
A strategic edge to the forces, deterrent for our neighboring countries.
Jai Hind.
Yes, 100% completion. TV9 News and your News 9 Plus is the first team here.
This and more. Streaming on News 9 Plus. Subscribe and get free vouchers.
Welcome back. You're watching Morning Brief at 9. Chinese President Xi Jinping met with some of the biggest names in the country's tech sector on Monday, including Alibaba founder Jack Ma. The meeting, seen as a major gesture of support, comes as Beijing looks to rally private enterprises as the economy struggles. More details in this report.
President Xi Jinping held a rare meeting with some of the biggest names in China's tech sector Monday. It marked a turnaround in Beijing's approach to its tech giants after a regulatory clampdown 4 years ago. The likes of Alibaba founder Jack Ma and DeepSeek's Liang Wenfeng were present at the highly choreographed event. Analysts said it was a show of support to rally private companies. The first images from Chinese state media showed Xi speaking to executives aligned in rows before him.
We hope that all private enterprises and private entrepreneurs will have the ambition to serve the country, strive for development, operate in accordance with the law, and promote common prosperity so as to make new and greater contributions to promoting Chinese-style modernization.
Investors raced to see who was in and out among top business leaders. Images showed bosses from Huawei and electric vehicle giant BYD sat directly in front of Xi. Leaders from Chinese giants including Xiaomi, Meituan and Tencent were also reportedly present. Shares of Baidu dropped more than 8% after no top executive was spotted. Two sources said the founders of Baidu and ByteDance were among those who did not attend. Jack Ma's attendance was notable. The once high-profile entrepreneur largely withdrew from public life after the IPO of his fintech company Ant was stopped by authorities 5 years ago. That move was triggered by a speech he gave the same year criticising China's regulatory system. Analysts said Xi's move to gather business leaders underscores the new importance of private sector innovation for China to gain ground in technology. US tariffs have recently threatened more pressure on the world's second largest economy. The country has struggled with weak domestic consumption and a debt crisis in the property sector.
For a growing number of Western tech companies, the new mantra is anything but China. In recent years, many firms sought to reduce their reliance on Chinese suppliers by adopting a China Plus One strategy, diversifying production to other countries. But with US-China tensions rising again, that shift is accelerating. More businesses are now moving manufacturing out of China, creating fresh opportunities for countries in Asia and Latin America. At the same time, Chinese suppliers are also expanding overseas to keep pace with changing global supply chains. China's draconian COVID-19 lockdowns, which caused production snarls in everything from iPhones to cars, triggered a large exodus of Western companies from China to places such as Vietnam and India. And moving on now, Mexican tequila makers are on edge as the threat of a 25% US import on tax looms over the country. Years of business growth could be at risk if the tariff goes into effect. US President Donald Trump had originally planned to impose the tax on Mexico and Canada, but has now agreed to a 30-day pause after both countries pledged to strengthen their borders.
Mexican tequila manufacturers are anxious about a potential 25% US import tax that could harm businesses they've spent years building. Meli Barajas, owner of Azteca Wines and Spirits, says that her supply chain is now frozen.
The uncertainty is affecting the girls, the whole production system, everything we have worked for during so many years because of a tariff.
US President Donald Trump initially planned to impose a 25% tariff on Mexico and Canada. However, he agreed to a 30-day pause after they pledged to reinforce their borders. Made from prickly agave plant and used in cocktails like margaritas, tequila has surged in popularity in the US. The country imported $3.8 billion of tequila in the first 9 months of 2024, according to the US Distilled Spirits Council. This represents a 13% increase from the same period a year earlier and is more than the combined imports of whiskey, gin, rum, brandy and vodka. Like French champagne or Italian Parmesan cheese, products called tequila or mezcal must be made in Mexico. Tariffs would therefore increase prices in the US. For Barajas, if tariffs are imposed, US buyers are likely to opt for other drinks.
And that's sad. It has caused us a great surprise that they want to do this because it has taken us so many years to enter the palate of the United States.
And South Korea's Data Protection Authority announced on Monday that new downloads of the Chinese AI app DeepSeek have been suspended due to concerns over data privacy. However, same-day shares of Tencent saw a rise after news emerged that the company was integrating the new app into its popular messaging platforms.
New Chinese AI model DeepSeek is drawing concern and excitement depending on where you are. On Monday, South Korea's data protection watchdog said it was suspending downloads of the app. The regulator said it took action after DeepSeek admitted failing to take into account some rules on the protection of data privacy. Officials said downloads would be permitted again once the app was in compliance. There was no immediate comment from DeepSeek, but privacy protection has emerged as a key concern over the product. Italy's Data Protection Authority said last month that it had ordered DeepSeek to block its chatbot there over similar worries. Earlier this month, a Chinese Foreign Ministry spokesperson said Beijing would never ask any company to collect or store personal data in breach of national laws. Meanwhile, DeepSeek continues to get a very warm welcome in its home country. Chinese tech giant Tencent saw its Hong Kong-listed shares up over 3% by mid-afternoon Monday. The jump came after it said it was testing integration of DeepSeek with its Weixin messaging app. Technology shares in Hong Kong have roared higher in recent weeks, in large part on optimism over the app. With its claim to beat or match Western rivals at a fraction of the cost, investors hope DeepSeek can boost China's whole tech sector.
Online fast fashion giant Shein is facing pressure to reduce its valuation to approximately $30 billion ahead of its upcoming London listing, according to reports. The move comes as the company deals with challenging market conditions, with investors now pushing for a more conservative estimate ahead of a public debut.
Shein is under pressure to cut its valuation to less than half the price put on it 2 years ago ahead of its potential London listing. That's according to a Bloomberg News report Monday. It said shareholders want the number lowered to about $30 billion. They reportedly think an adjustment is needed to help get the potential UK IPO completed. The China-founded online fast fashion retailer did not respond to a Reuters request for comment. Earlier this month, Reuters reported Shein was set to cut its listing valuation to around $50 billion due to growing headwinds. That was almost a quarter less than the fundraising value of $66 billion the company set 2 years ago. Shein had aimed to go public in London in the first half of this year if it gained approval from UK and Chinese regulators. But the Financial Times reported last week the listing was likely to be postponed. It said it could be moved to the second half of this year after US President Donald Trump's move to close the de minimis loophole. That is a duty exemption in the US for shipments of less than $800, which has helped Shein keep prices low. Industry experts argue the removal of it could hurt the firm's profitability and raise product prices in the US, its biggest market.
And a Delta airline flight carrying about 80 people crashed while attempting to land at Toronto's Pearson International Airport in Canada. Images from the scene show plane flipped upside down after the crash. Delta flight 4819, which had 76 passengers and 4 crew members, had departed from Minneapolis St. Paul International Airport heading to Toronto. Fortunately, all 80 people on board were evacuated, but at least 15 people, including a child, sustained injuries, with 2 individuals reported to be in critical condition. Emergency services have responded to the crash site as investigations continue.
So the facts of the matter around this event that happened at approximately 2:30 p.m. is Delta Airlines Flight 4819 from Minneapolis to Toronto, operated by subsidiary Endeavour Air, was involved in a single aircraft accident upon landing at Toronto Pearson. The plane was carrying 4 crew and 76 passengers, among them 22 Canadians. The other passengers were multinational. Airport emergency workers mounted a textbook response, reaching the site within minutes and quickly evacuating the passengers. Again, there were no fatalities. 17 injured passengers were quickly taken to local area hospitals. At this time, we do not know of any of those passengers having critical injuries. We immediately halted further arrivals and departures on our remaining 3 runways. Those runways were reopened at approximately 5 p.m. The other runways are remaining to serve the investigation, which will be carrying forward for the rest of tonight and into the next several days. Again, we are very grateful that there was no loss of life and relatively minor injuries. We are very focused on the...
And Britain has announced it is ready to send peacekeeping troops to support any potential peace deal in Ukraine. This comes as European leaders met on Monday to discuss and agree on a unified strategy. Meanwhile, Russia and the US officials are also preparing to meet for separate talks aimed at bringing an end to the ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict.
Britain said it was ready to send peacekeeping troops to back up any Ukraine peace deal, as European leaders gathered in Paris on Monday to agree to a unified strategy. The emergency summit came together after U.S. President Donald Trump's administration, Kyiv's main military backer, announced talks with Russia to seek an end to the war. A French presidency official said the discussion would look at, quote, the security guarantees that can be given by the Europeans and the Americans, together or separately, with peacekeepers being just one element of the security guarantees. British Prime Minister Keir Starmer's comments on sending British troops reflect a realization among European nations that they will have to do more to ensure Ukraine's security and their own.
We're facing a generational challenge when it comes to national security. Obviously, the immediate question is the future of Ukraine. It's the front line of Europe and of the United Kingdom. It's about our national security. And I think that we need to do more. We need to step up.
A peacekeeping force would not only risk a direct confrontation with Russia, but also raises questions about how some European nations will pay for such expanded military commitments, as their arsenals have been depleted by supplying Ukraine and decades of relative peace. Germany and Sweden signaled the possibility of sending troops, while the Dutch government said it could contribute given a clear mandate and a pledge of U.S. support in any escalation. Ukraine.
And days after Prime Minister Narendra Modi's US visit, where he also met Tesla chief Elon Musk, Tesla is now beginning to hire for roles in India ranging from advisors and service managers to store manager, customer engagement manager, service technicians and parts advisors. These recent jobs posted on LinkedIn, as many as 13 roles, suggest that Tesla may be eyeing an entry into India less than a year after Elon Musk cancelled his India visit, owing to heavy Tesla obligations. Now, job roles were posted less than 24 hours ago and hundreds have already applied for the roles. What is yet to be seen is how the government will engage with Tesla, given its requirements for foreign players to make investment commitments and ensure localization if they want to avoid heavy taxes levied on imported cars. This is a developing story and we will keep tracking it for you here on Newsline. And that's all we have on Morning Brief at 9. Thank you very much for watching.
मैं और आप, हम अलग कहाँ हैं?
Gill on 199.
अपनी अपनी मंजिल पर हम दोनों की नजर है और उसके लिए हम जी जान लगाकर मेहनत करते हैं। पर कभी कभी
He's out on 199.
मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच रह जाता है एक फासला। खैर, मुझे उस फासले को मिटाने के लिए थोड़ी और मेहनत लगेगी, पर शुक्र है आपके पास है टाटा कैपिटल, जो मिटाए फासले आपकी मेहनत और मंजिल के बीच।